what I realized was that very often this is the state that I watch, but I'm not even conscious that I'm watching like that, until sometimes people come and join. People used to sometimes come and sit and watch a bit, and I see how they participate. I'm not participating. I don't have the feeling of participating. I'm feeling of just viewing. But the viewing is so fresh. It's not. There's no judgment. There's reactions, laughter, or something happened, but it's almost like how I am normally anyway. So the watching is taking place, and I cannot say. I said that you must experience a life like this. You have to experience a life like this, where it's not hot. You don't get caught up into judgments, and if judgments come, there's always some distance between the judgments or any other phenomena, any other sensation. It's like that. After a while, it stops being a kind of like a doing of it, and you realize that there's no doing of it. And if we really understand this thing, in a way, the higher truth is that nobody is really doing anything. This is why, in a sense, ultimately they're not responsible. You have to know this thing. If we know only lesser things, meaning that you really believe in the person, then you can judge their action. And in that world of thought, then you can say, yes, they also believe, because they also believe that they're the doer of action. Then it completes the illusion. Because if one party did not believe that, it's a delusion, then it wouldn't work. But both parties, the one who is seen to be doing and the one who is judging the doing, are both co-creators in that delusion. So this is something that became so clear, that someone is doing something like this, and sometimes you have to talk like this. Why are you doing this? You said you would not do this. Why are you doing this? But after the seeing comes, those words cannot be in your heart too much. You're quick to say, when I say, but I didn't do it, and you have to say, it's true, you didn't do it. It's not a doing. That the consciousness is responsible. You are the consciousness. You cannot say that you're not the consciousness. You are the consciousness. But it's like, there's not really that you're doing anything deliberately. What can happen is that you can change your what do we call it now? You can just you can play in that box, in that room. But as soon as it's very easy to trigger your letting go of that. I mean, you can play, but you're never totally in it. Something you have to play along, because the interactions are happening in bodies in which consciousness are believing themselves to be persons. So in a way, there has to a little bit be a cooperation, because if I addressed each one only as consciousness when they are addressing themselves and me as persons, then we could not really correspond. You understand? The thing is that this is why I say that when you realize the truth, when a consciousness realizes the truth in one body, it doesn't awaken the truth in all the bodies. It doesn't happen in all the bodies simultaneously. But what happens is that the consciousness in that body realizes that it is the same consciousness in everybody. That root consciousness is there. And that maybe you may call true understanding or compassion or something like that. Because knowing that, although you are able to speak with otherness in the language of otherness, but you will never really be deluded by it, because underneath the bigger truth is that really there's a sameness. So both things are happening. There's a seeming dialogue that's happening with another person. I know that consciousness is in that form, and it seems perfectly natural. But that language sits inside a bigger understanding that is just isness. It just is. And in that understanding, there is just a stillness. There's no doorship, there's no somebody going or somebody coming. It is just a space. It shines inside the body, just like emptiness. Because in that place, there's no measurement. Behind the I amness itself, there's no measurement. So we can't talk about it. You can only be this. This is your total resting place. Effortless resting place is in that place before the I am begin. And which is there when the I am begin. The I am can only begin in time. Whereas what is behind the I am was not in time. It's always been here. So the I am started. And when the I am started, the world started. Duality started. I and you started. And play. But behind this, where all of that movie, that bubble of I am creation, beyond this, it sits inside that perfect reality. The words can never do it. They're not meant to. They could only be a pointing finger. And by themselves, it's not enough. The pointing finger has got to somehow correspond to the open mind. Pointing finger, open mind. When pointing finger meets open mind, then insight can happen. Pointing finger meets open mind, illumination comes. In-seeing happens. When in-seeing happens, then out-seeing is kind of taken away. When I say out-seeing is taken away, it's like the surface of the manifestation there, but the meanings. When it says that the world disappear, it doesn't mean the physical world disappear. It means the meanings given to the world disappear. The world that appears in the mind as names and forms and meanings and concepts, that will disappear, meaning that it's any meaning that feels to be inherent, any meaning that seems to be real, they will be seen as illusory. And when those meanings are illusory, it means that that world is always changing in terms of just energetically. So it doesn't exist. It doesn't exist as it does in the mind. In our mind, we think it exists. But it's only a world of meanings. We think we're talking about a material world, but we are always talking about a psychological world. You see? We think we're talking about a material world. We're all living in the material world. But actually, what we are living in, our life, is a psychological life. A life of feelings and memory, of comparisons, aspiration, doubts, of fears, imagination. All of these things is the color of our existence. And all of this is illusory. When they say the world is not real, we're not speaking about this physical manifestation. That also, in a sense, is not real because it's always changing. And always changing means it's not real. It means that the mind fixes it and makes a photograph of the world, and then makes this photograph seem as though it's fixed and it's tangible. But the world also appears in our dream, and it has equal credibility in our dream. And that world that's created in our dream is made out of dream substance. It's not made out of, 5 elements. The 5 elements in the dream world are dream. The 5 elements, which seem to be the 5 physical elements, correspond to the 5 physical senses, in a sense. So these elements, they are only as real as they are believed in the senses. And so in the dream world also, these elements combine together and display a world also. But when we wake up, we have to confirm that that world that we saw in the dream was not a tangible world. It wasn't a world that you can't weigh the stones now in the waking state. The stones that appeared in your dream. you could weigh them in your dream, but now you cannot weigh them in the waking state because they have no physicality. They were all made out of dream substance. And now the world now, which is in this waking state, dream also. But while we are in the state of belief in this waking state, then the waking world will be real. And it's a world of meanings. We don't realize, people don't realize that what we're speaking about is a world of meanings. We talk like we're talking about the solid world, but you're speaking about the world of meanings. This is why each person's life is different. Because the meanings are different. Not just because the bodies are different, but because the meanings are different. The psychological patterns are different. And from one day to another day, you are different also. Because you cannot repeat any day. How you are today is completely unique tomorrow, because you cannot repeat today. There are certain energetic, what I would call styles of thinking, a kind of modification, a kind of a groove through which the consciousness will flow. But even though it flows through that apparent groove, it's always unique. Each moment you're fresh. And the point of saying that is that in our dynamic expression, we're always changeful, not fixed. The thing that is the most stable in us, in our dynamic state, is the I am beingness itself. The I am beingness is the most stable because that's the one place where witnessing can occur. Witnessing means that I must be in a fixed place to watch and observe and measure movements. If there was two things moving, they couldn't measure each other. One must be fixed to measure the movement of the other. So relatively speaking, the witness is the unmoving part. But only in comparison to its physical perception, the phenomenal perception. But at a more deeper and more mature stage of seeing, the fixed witness also becomes phenomenal, meaning that it also is a movement. And the proof of the movement of the witness is that it's not continuous. It's in a cycle of waking, dreaming, deep sleep. So it is also, this is the movement of the witness itself. In relationship to the witness, what the witness perceives are in movement, and the witness is still. So, at the heart of the phenomenal person is the I amness, and at the heart of the I amness is the absolute. Somehow, in elucidating some of these things, for me, it's just like the angels of being singing. They sing. And when they sing, somehow it's the vibration more than the words. No? The words in a song, both the words and the music together, they come. So I feel somehow when we speak about these things, it's not just the words, but the vibration. The vibration is the song of the words. So some people listen and they understand the words because the words are also the vibration. But some also just respond to the vibration. And the vibration is much more like the intuitive body of the words, which are much more dense. The energy behind the words, the more intuitive, they are the song of the words. So back to that first point was that how are we perceiving? How do I perceive? Because you asked me, watching this thing, which are, we're reminiscing now about being in India, and we're watching these images of myself hugging people and in the darshan and this type of thing, and how does it feel? And
the question was do you feel is there any difference when you watch your body, like all these phenomena? Because like when we're having satsang and everything, so your pictures are everywhere and it's always around you. So I just because I never asked you
My
this
pictures
question.
are around me. What do you mean?
No, like everywhere we put your picture, and it's kind of like it's in my phone, it's in computer, it's in.
I see.
So I'm saying, how does it feel for you? Like you see you see.
I see. Like
What's
this.
its symbol? I don't know.
Yeah. So then I have to consider.
No, if you don't have anything to say, it's
No,
okay.
no. Because sometimes I have to find what I feel. No? Because there is a kind of a little bit of an abstraction there for me. Because there's something that's neutral. Because I'm seeing everything together. I'm not just seeing my form, seeing the interactions.
Yeah.
I'm feeling also the vibration of it, like that. And then I was looking at the darshan, for instance, and so I could kind of recall the quality of my seeing, like that, you know, like just how the seeing feels inside the body in such moments, because it's just completely empty. It's just completely empty, and then the body parts are moving automatically. The body parts are moving, just something moved them like this, and something looks at that one, and all of this is sort of like for me it is like I am there in this, but I'm also beyond it, so I'm able to kind of watch that movement taking place. And it's very sweet because I'm not doing anything at all, but also watching that there is there's a power that guides these movements, that kind of inspires them to move. It's a kind of an impulse to whatever. But myself also, I feel like I'm not moving, doing anything at all. You see, so I mean, I'm that's my most truthful place. If I have to try and give some indication of what's happening there, is that both, like now, let's talk now.
Okay.
So this conversation is happening like this, and there's intelligence in the conversation. There's memory in the conversation. That all these things, they are what is the most obvious and the most true is that everything is coming out of this vastness, this looking from this nothingness. The speaking comes out of it. The thinking comes out of it. The sense of the continuity of this body and seems to come out of it. And sometimes, like, I seem to have this feeling like I would like this body to be well, for instance, no? Because sometimes I feel like I'm coming near to dropping, it's going to drop away. And so there is something that feels, no, I want to enjoy being here. I'd like to see this place, open up to all the friends who can come and so on and so on. So. But I don't know if I'll be able to see it through or something like this. Sometimes I have this feeling. And something, there's a wish for the continuation of the body. But it's like it's not another, but at the same time, there's something that really doesn't care at all about it. This is a funny thing. There's something which really doesn't like, and that seems to be where I am, because if I think about it, like these thoughts come, like, okay, so what happens if the body falls away, and it would be really good, I mean, what does it take? And just, it's so easy for you to do it. It's so easy. What is there? Everything is easy for you. Why you don't do this? Another part says, why are you thinking about that? Forget about it. And I'm saying, then the voice comes and says, but if you forget about it, the consequence of forgetting about it is that you're putting on more weight, you're feeling more pain in your body, it's going to go. And I think so it's like, why you worry about this thing? You know, there's no end to you, so why you worry about it? So there's this kind of thing happening inside sometimes. And the reality is that I cannot catch the energy to do it. But sometimes it can happen, but it cannot happen by intention. In a way, I can say that there was a time I could use more intention. You see, but my intentions have faded. So whatever mechanism there was to be able to employ intention has sort of like been dissolving. And then there's a memory of maybe I could have used a bit of more determination energy, but it looks like you're not. In one way, it's almost feel like, but why you don't try? I said, yeah, but and then some part of maybe our education say, you sure not? You just an excuse and you're just being lazy. So being lazy. Yes, I seem like something is very lazy for that. It's not lazy to speak the truth. It's not lazy to meet people. It's not lazy to so many other things. But for many, many other things, it's lazy. If you want to use the word lazy, we can change the word for something else. Not interested, maybe. Like when I was in Moscow, he was telling me it was very easy, Mooji, we can start to do some simple yoga, just like this, put your hand like this and stretch spine, this, and I'll show you the sun worship or sun salutation, and I said, yeah, okay, maybe we can do some. And inside, this voice is going, "You're joking. You're joking. Why are you telling him that? You're not. You don't have this. That's not for you anymore to say this. So then I said, you know what? I don't know. We have to see. So, and then the feeling is, if someone says, okay, let's do. What about tomorrow? We do this thing at 12 o'clock. I know it doesn't go like this. I say, you can make that happen. You can do this at 12. And then I see, yes, they can do it because they're in that orientation. That is something that your mind still works on this level. So consciousness, gives you that freedom to kind of say, okay, 12 o'clock you're going to do something. But for myself, I see that as a very powerful weakness in some way. Not just the people who have an intention and do it. It's fine. I enjoy something about this. I love and respect something about this. But if you are dedicated to this, then I find a huge weakness about it.
Yeah. It's not flexible.
Well, not natural. Because what is natural is just natural. It doesn't even have to be flexible. It's just natural. So it just moves as it does. And in our human language, we speak about flexibility. So it's okay. I understand that something feels okay. All right, let's do this then, or whatever. But all of this for me is already written somehow. But it's not something that is useful to tell everybody. It's not, most knowledge in the world is not general. Most knowledge is specific. So in order to speak to many people, the important thing is to get them into the same orientation, the same vibration. Then they can listen. They can't listen cold because they will all listen through their own filters. This is why it's good when you come to Satsang already. Something may help some people to already tune in so that they can be receptive at that deeper level. Otherwise, it takes time. And for me, sitting with people over so many years, it would sometimes take 1 or 2 or 3 satsangs for them to kind of just to defrost from their mental and psychological tightness to be able to even begin to hear what you're saying in the correct way.
this voice in you and the voice I have inside my head? Is there different?
I don't think they're any different. It's just, if there's a difference, is the way in which I regard them. You understand?
Yeah.
Because I always know myself as beyond the voices, any voice. I use the word voice, but it is just like
Thought.
yeah, it is kind of thought. They can be sattvic or otherwise. They can be rajasic thought as well. But it's a kind of intelligence also. And it's the play of consciousness which always flows in duality. So because there's an interest, this place comes into being. If there's no interest, no play comes into being. So because there's a bit, something is in this body still, which is that this body has been very, very fit in a great deal of time in this life. And over a period of time, it has been kind of getting less fit and more sort of like unwell in many respects. I have a feeling that somehow the work I am with people in a lot of times and in very close, energetic kind of connections with a lot of emotional energy, a lot of psychological energy pointed towards in this direction, and it has some impact somehow. I feel this impact inside the body, and it brings a lot of strain and on some level, but in myself as I am not affected by it. But in my physical manifestation, it is affected by it a bit. Now, this physical aspect of myself used to somehow interfere a little bit with the sort of interactions with people, like how I was eating, how the body was feeling, and so on like this. If I was tired, that would make a difference, but it doesn't seem to make that difference now.
So you said the difference is about how you regard that voice or the thought. But
Yes.
isn't it like, okay, you have a thought and another thought says, oh, that can't be true because I know this other thing. But that's still a thought, you know what I mean? Thoughts talking to thoughts about thoughts. This is one consciousness that...
Thoughts are not just talking to thoughts about thoughts. Thoughts are engaged with consciousness in its belief that it is a person.
Yes.
And it's not just another thought, it's like the core thought. This is like the source thought. This is like the sponsoring thought. This is like the firstborn. This is like the first concept. It's not any regular 2-3 star concept. You're talking about the birthplace of concepts. So it's relating to the sense of it's relating to the consciousness in consciousness's own hypnotic belief that it's conditioning. So why it's different is that the consciousness is the I amness itself in a deluded state. But even a deluded state, it's tremendously powerful. It's like even a drugged lion it's dangerous. I mean, the fittest cow could not fight a sick lion. So even in a deluded state, the consciousness is the most powerful, and the mind, the aspect of consciousness that functions as mind, that intensifies the feeling of duality, can only really confront that consciousness. It has to be working at the consciousness constantly. Otherwise, consciousness wakes up. It's like if you're going to work, you're working 9 to 5 every day, or 5 times a week. You're doing this for years. They give you 2 weeks holiday a year or whatever it is. If they give you 8 weeks holiday, you probably don't go back to work. It has to be. They have to keep you on the nipple of this work. And in the same way, if the mind always has to be working at consciousness to keep it deluded, It has to keep topping up the drug of identity to remind you in so many ways that you're a person. Because if it doesn't do that, then you wake up to yourself, you realize, oh, you would know that you're not the thoughts. Whatever conversations go on, I am aware of myself as in the form of the I am, vaguely in the form of a person also. That's there. Because of love. Because of the love that even love in its most deluded form is still love. And so consciousness still supports its even its greatest illusions and delusions. It's still the child of the same consciousness, and it looks after it. So all those functions and capacities are within myself. What is different from before is that I am one with my absolute state, and also I'm also present in my relative expression also, and in my dream state. In my dream state, by dream state I mean dream from the point of view of my identity state. I can, that can still be there. It's somehow there, but it's not there. It's there superficially. It's not there, as the highest truth. It's just there superficially. And it can be there. It causes no trouble. You can say that it functions as a father to my children or to whatever it is. It's still there. It still has to do these things. If I forget everything about that, that's also fine. And sometimes consciousness chooses to do that, if you want to use the word choose, to just completely let go of all all the relative ties in every way. Just let go of it, almost like throws it off. So whether your child dies or doesn't die doesn't make no difference to you. Whether somebody's beating your mother or not doesn't make a difference to you. Because, well, you can say that it doesn't make a difference them beating your mother than beating any other mother or any other person. You see, the consciousness can take on that degree of what you may call unbiasedness, where it just sees things just like this, that the only difference is the concept of me and my, that makes give preference to you because you're my friend or something. It can manifest like this also, and don't feel any bias towards anyone.
Does that serve does that like in some way serve, like, say, your family, if you can let go of this, like even to let go of the ties somehow?
The example I'm making at the moment is a very extreme example of one who is able to break all ties in the physical realm, so to speak. It's almost like they're not anybody's son, there's no anybody's father, they are not anybody's friend. And it's not an attitude they're trying to keep, it's just that they've reached that stage. But consciousness doesn't have to go to that stage. It has many ways of being totally itself, wearing different clothing. You understand? You understand what I mean by this? It doesn't all have to look like, there's not a template for a realized being's expression. It can in one way be a housekeeper and have 15 children and do all kind of stuff. It can have all these. You see, it doesn't have to conform to the kind of religious ideals of any particular group, that you have to behave like the Dalai Lama or something or whatever. You don't It doesn't have to have any kind of standard of behavior. It can be very, very different. But the world judges according to the world's limited, the conditioned world or conditioned mind, and judges according to its own traditions, you see. But you can have a sage like Drukpa Kunli, for instance, as I spoke about, the Tibetan Lama, who his behavior is totally unconventional in spiritual, sort of realms. His behavior was, like he made love to his mother and stuff like that, and was always running after sex with young girls and getting drunk and stuff. But his realization was completely pure, completely pure. Now there's a lot of people who like to emulate Drukpa Kunli, but hide behind what they think is their own weak tendencies, to then say, yeah, you know what, Drukpa Kunli, say, yeah, but you're not him. Okay, all right. So there is this kind of stuff, but he came at a time when there was a tremendous amount of conceitedness in the Tibetan world, in the world of their spiritual world. There was a lot of kind of like how the priests and the people were there. It was a lot of exploitation, a lot of arrogance, a lot of this type of thing. And so consciousness manifested this form called Drukpa Kunli to challenge completely the traditions of that culture, to completely tear it apart in what seems completely opposite to their religious, sort of correctness. I mean, he would just do the most strange things. But in another aspect, the consciousness doesn't behave like that. It behaves in a different way. So we cannot set a standard for that. Because in reality, it's beyond all of that. It only performs in the theater of consciousness these roles to somehow to display its total power and perfection. And that no human intellect, which is also an aspect of consciousness, can comprehend the total power and potential of consciousness. The only way you can do that is to completely die to yourself. As long as there's the strands, the roots, the tendrils of the egoic identity, it will begin to grow again. Some brambles will come. Which are fine. Just if the understanding always somehow protects itself, refreshes. It's funny because watching this movie, watching this film, to try and satisfy a little bit the question you ask. Some other factors comes into watching, like my upbringing, for instance, because, and also my own individualized personal expression, because a part of me is very shy, so I see this shyness also. There's a sort of shyness. It doesn't mean anything at all, actually, but there is that kind of quality present, and I don't like people making a fuss about me. So, but something permits that, because somehow it seems to be there, and it is sort of like, because it's almost as though if I say to you everything that's going to happen is already written in terms of its physical unfolding. But at the same time, I am saying that the story is being written as it goes, and yet both these statements are true. So we have to understand with another part of our being how these statements can be true. It's like I say, the world is not what you think it is. And I say, the world is exactly what you think it is. And both these statements, they are true. And if there's anything to them at all, the purpose or power of them is to break this reliance and show how limited our language is. Because perhaps the closer language becomes to actual truth, concepts begin to explode into paradoxes. And you start to bite your tongue, basically, before you go into silence. So I don't think we really, at our normal consciousness, normal conditioned state of consciousness, can really comprehend really the magicality of truth, even in the play. We cannot comprehend it. That kind of like only when you are nothing, then this wisdom which has no boundary can just dance. When you are not there as you. When you are there as a you, as a you me, and then it's like everything slows down. It's like you're moving in quicksand. When you are free of the I me you, and then the universe just this behavior is different. Out of the space of our own beingness, when it is freed up from the conditioned mind, which is freed up from conditioned mind, then you're really in the domain of God, basically. And everything is there. It's funny, it's fresh, it's unconquerable, vast, and very, very serious and completely hilarious at the same time. It can be anything at all, and nothing of it. This is the fascinating, if you want to say like that. I'm using this silly words now, because even to say like it's fascinating, I say, well, for whom is it fascinating actually? Because it's just for convention or for the conventional mind. But what I was saying is fascinating is how consciousness can spend what we call human earth time, so much of it in this body, which of course the consciousness doesn't mean anything at all. Whether something is for 10 years, 50 years, or 1,000 years makes absolutely no difference to consciousness. But at the same time, in our mental frame, we say consciousness can spend 30 years in a body talking complete nonsense. It can do this, completely unaware of itself, of the power of itself. And this it causes to be like that. Because you cannot introduce or point the finger at another place where it can come from, apart from consciousness. That it can spend a whole lifetime, several lifetimes, hiding from itself, and believing its delusions. Yeah, this is amazing for me. You know, and fighting the world to defend complete, you know. Yeah, it's like going to war over an egg sandwich or something. And, you know, destroy nations. And I'm sure it's just having a laugh. You know, I mean, you know, I don't know what else to say about it. Yeah, I mean, if it wants to be ridiculous, it sure knows how to be ridiculous. And then another twist, you know. I mean, nothing can challenge its wisdom. There's no nothing apart from it. There's not anything apart from it to challenge itself. So it can do exactly what it likes. Even somebody goes, I don't believe in consciousness. It's self-consciousness. It's talking like that. You know? It says the most beautiful things, and then it rises up in another body and goes, that's rubbish. And when you see these things, what can you say? You just have to be in love. I mean, consciousness says, I hate myself. Okay. I mean, who else can say this kind of stuff? I hate myself. He said, no, I'm not really. I really love myself. And then he says, well, who says both those things? I don't even know who that is. I said it, but not me really. I never said anything in the whole world. All these things we can see them. And if you don't get entangled in all of that, it just becomes something, it's totally divine. So at the end of the day, you have to say that, you know, don't put too much importance on learning anything.